Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Dion is Richard Lewis here, joining with Logan, my grandson.
Oh, that's awesome. Glad to have you, buddy. Really, really happy to have you. Really, really happy. And I hope you have some questions ready for Kenwyne, huh?
See you bring the big boy today, so we might have some questions.
Nah, that's awesome. That's awesome. That's awesome. We still have a few more people joining in, so I'll just take about a minute. You have a few people coming in. Pleasant afternoon, everybody. My name is Dion Lafuka, Technical Director of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. It gives me great pleasure to welcome each and every one of you here today, along with our very special guest today, Mr. Kenwyne Jones. Also, what I'm going to do, as you know, for me guys, I would like to start with a prayer. So I'm going to open in a little prayer. Dear God, thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for having again provided an opportunity for us to do our best to motivate and inspire these youths. We also remember people in the world, anybody in the world and in Trinidad and Tobago who is suffering with anything that is very difficult situation for them to deal with, whether it's medical, whatever situation they're dealing with. We remember them at this time and pray, O Lord, that your hand of mercy reach upon them and help them through whatever crisis that they're dealing with. In Jesus' name we pray, amen. So without any further ado, I would like to take I have the esteemed pleasure on behalf of the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association, on behalf of the FIFA Trinidad and Tobago Normalization Committee, to welcome Mr. Kenwyne Jones, who is well known, not only in the Caribbean, but also in the UK and other parts of Europe for his contribution to Trinidad and Tobago and the Premiership. So Kenwyne, without any further ado, welcome.
Thank you very much. Pleasant afternoon to everyone.
Kenwyne, I want to start off by asking you, please, can you tell us a little bit of our theme, There is Hope. Can you share how does that resonate with you?
I think there is hope is something that in our normal lives we live by. As simple as y'all are young, you have exams coming up, you would study, and then I'm pretty sure in the back of your mind you would say that you hope you do well in your exam. It's a word that resonates with us. It's a word that we live by. It's a feeling. It's a thought process. It's a choice, because you can choose not to believe. You can choose not to wish for or to hope for anything in your life. And with me, it is something that from a very young age is something that is at the forefront of my being. Anything that I go through, I do prepare, I do pray, and I hope that I always have a favorable result. So I understand that it is a theme that is set for this webinar here concerning the Football Association and around football. But as a general term, I do think that hope is something that we need to have, regardless of your standing in life, your position in life, and it's something that is very instrumental in how we go by our day-to-day.
Thank you very much, Kenwyne. Kenwyne, and I know everybody on the call will want to know about your Premiership days and national team times with the senior team. But I want you to talk us through, Kenwyne, a little bit about your journey as a youth coming up, you know, from your, all your different experiences as a youth leading up to where you eventually became.
Well, on, you know, to the surprise of many, football was not my first love. Um, as a young child, I played all sports: basketball, cricket, football, athletics. Athletics was my number one love, but I was reasonably good at all of the sports that I played. Um, Choosing football in the end, I think it had you know, some big motivation for me. Firstly, because my dad used to play football for the Defense Force back in the day. I think he played up to the national under 20s, and unfortunately for him, before he got to the senior team, he got a knee injury at that time that forced him to stop or to not be at that level anymore. And also, my uncle, he was a part of the 1989 strike squad, and of course played for Trinidad and Tobago for a number of years. So I've always had motivational figures there that still led me to hold on to football in 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 that regard. But again, athletics was my number one sport. I was pretty fast and could do long jump and all of that type of thing. And then again, basketball, cricket, the same thing. Coming out of primary school, I wanted to be an athlete specifically, but I passed for St. Anthony's College. I wanted to go to QRC because I know they had an athletic program, but I passed for St. Anthony's College, and the first, on my orientation day, the first thing I asked the dean at that time was, do they have athletics? And he said, well, no, we don't have athletics here, but we have cricket, football, basketball, water polo, swimming. And I could remember going, being in the classroom for orientation and looking at the field at St. Anthony's College. I think they were in preseason at that time, coming down towards the end of preseason, and the field was cut so pristinely, and they had some brand new spanking orange nets and on the goalposts, right? And I didn't bother to listen to anything that the dean was saying at that point in time. My eyes were just casted upon the feel and the newness of it, and just thinking that, you know what, I'll have a really good time at this school. So being in school again, I didn't formally join any team. I wasn't a part of any club football per se. But in Form 1, I think coming down to maybe the third week of the new term, they had basically football trials to try and make the school team. I mean, knowing that I could play, I just went along. At that time, the coach, Nigel Grosvenor, saw me in the trial. I told him I was a midfielder. Because he had known all the other guys, he put me to play right back at the time. So I went in just for the sake of playing. I mean, I could play the position. Went in, and after that, I was selected. So in Form 1, then I was playing Form 1 football. I was playing under 14 football, and I was also playing under 15 at the time and under 16 in Form 1. So having that experience through my first few years of school was very formative for me. Again, playing football in school, looking at it as an extracurricular activity. I'm getting to play some sports in school. I was pretty happy. And when I got to Form 3, I was 14 years old. And what happened was we used to use the Republic Bank tournament as preseason before the season started for St. Anthony's College. And we went along to that tournament and we got to the semi-final, I think, that year. And after that, I started playing under 16 more and second 11. And I was on the bench a few times for the Intercal team. Later on in the season, while I was in Form 3, I got wind of a list being put out to come and train with the national under 15, who were then preparing for the under 17 World Cup in 2001. And at that time, a couple years time, right? So, I mean, not knowing anything, not, really thinking about national football and making football a career, I was like, you know what? Okay, I'll go along. So I went along to the screening. It had 150 kids there at the Hazley Crawford Stadium in Port of Spain. And we went through training and scrimmages. And I can remember on my third day, very freakishly, I was chasing someone down to get the ball, and I slipped and went sliding forward and put my hand down and broke my left hand. So when that happened, I was like, well, okay, this dream is over because I have too many kids here and they are trying to choose someone quickly. So, okay, I had this time, I broke my hand, and I went back to my regularly scheduled program. I went back to school. I had to wait 6 weeks before I could start back to play again in school. I couldn't wait. At the 5th week, I started back playing. That year for us, we ended up winning the national under 15 and 16 title. And then the school season was finished. The football season for school was finished. Come January again, I wasn't thinking of football anymore in that regard. And a friend of mine who was still training with the national under 15 at that time told me they put out a list and your name is there, but they're asking after you and no one, they're not seeing you. I was like, well, all right, okay. And then I went back and started training, and month by month, they keep chopping down the squad, and I keep finding myself there every time, and the more and more as the squad got whittled down, I keep finding myself within the squad. It keep giving me a little bit more hope that, oh, well, this could be something. I could make it here. Not thinking of the magnitude of what we were going to face, but just at the point in time thinking that, you know what, I'm making it. Okay, I'll keep going. Fortunately for me, I kept my place all the way to the end. I made it to the final squad for the under 17 World Cup, and all along that, I was playing intercall for St. Anthony's College. I made my debut properly in 1999, and I played up until 2002, winning quite a couple national intercall titles and league championships and MVPs and that type of stuff. But I think for me, the biggest foundation or the most instrumental foundation I would have had was my time at school, with my coach and other friends who I grew up with that played football and went on to represent national teams, and even some of the older guys that were part of the school. We had a lineage of players making it to the national team and being quite known players in the professional league and semi-professional league at that time as well too, around Trinidad and Tobago. So I had a lot of motivation in that sense of where football could have gone for me. But in my direct circumference really, or direct space, my time playing through school and then joining the national team and gaining that experience kind of solidified my choice in going after being a professional footballer.
Wow, what a fantastic journey. Now I want to go back to something you said. You know, you obviously went into the school thinking that they would have a track team and get wanting to do track. And you realize that, wow, this school only really plays, is really big on football and cricket and maybe a little bit of basketball. Was there any time you thought of transferring schools, or is it that because that field was so well cut and the net was so new that you're like, hey, I gotta score a goal in that net?
Oh well, coming from Chaguanas, I had my choices were St. Mary's College, QRC, St. Anthony's College, and Trinity College. I had the only clue as a young boy of any school that I really had in mind or known about on my own was QRC. St. Anthony's College, I didn't know about. Trinity, I didn't know about. St. Mary's wasn't really a thought for me, but QRC was the place that I wanted to go because of athletics. Also, the funny thing is that I know, well, most of the people now know it as SEA, but we had common entrance, as they used to call it, and I wrote that exam a year early. So I was in secondary school at 10.
Wow.
Right? So at that point in time, knowing where I'm coming from, my parents would have had the financial stability to be able to send me to track or wanting to go through the process of transferring. When I get to St. Anthony's, that was it. I mean, I guess it was a bit of a comfort seeing that my father was a soldier at that time and he was stationed in the Chagaramas base. So, being that close, St. Anthony's in proximity to the Defense Force headquarters, I guess it made some sense. And by the time that I got up there and going through the orientation, to be really honest, I really didn't hear much, but I just keep gazing at the football field and the newness of the net. And then and then the second person to speak to me in the school during that orientation process was Mr. Grosvenor. Talking about, it have football because he would have known my dad as a player and that type of stuff. So he was already convinced, well, yeah, he could come through and play football and, it would have this available to him and that. But I really wasn't hearing none of that. I was just, focused on the field and the nets. That is something that I think attracted me to football even more. Because I'm accustomed, at that point in time, I was accustomed going out on a field, in the rain and in the mud without a net really, and a busted ball, and playing on that hole for the entire day. And when you come to a place where as a young kid, you see a field like that, well cut, it's properly marked out, and you're seeing brand new nets, that is not something you're accustomed to. So seeing that, it entices you even more to want to play at that particular place.
Kevin, I can't help but think, what happened if the school didn't cut the field at that time and put those nets up? It's just going over my mind,
Yeah, it might have been different. It might have been different. But something that I always live by as well, is that they say you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that day, the field made an impression on me. If it had to be, cut at another time, well, then probably not. But at that point in time, knowing that they had orientation and, things working out so well, it really did entice me to play football even more.
And obviously we have somebody youth on the call, and I'm sure they'll get a chance to ask some questions in a little bit. But I'm sure, Kenwyne, there are youth here who play different sports, right? So you obviously you're strong, you're fast. Obviously, that's a great asset that you possess. you're fast. And at what point you said, maybe, I would have loved to do track and see how far that could have gone. But at what point you said, I think football is the way for me to go? Is it because of the getting involved in the national youth teams that you're like, oh, this could be a career? At what point you said, maybe track is not it?
Well, after so much time had passed, from Form 1, I didn't continue with track. Apart from your school sports, I didn't really continue with track. And then I had football and cricket and basketball available. Track kind of went out my head at that point in time. But football was still, or all the sports really was really extracurricular activities. Sport is something I grew up playing all the time. So to have that available in school, you would take the chance and be involved. I know I was pretty good in all the sports that I played. So going to try and make teams is something that, felt relatively easy to me because I felt that I could play all sports well. I did go on to play cricket for the school because for every season that there was a sport, I was involved in it. I even tried, to play water polo as well, just because I love sport that much. So you would be getting involved in everything. So when cricket season come around, I'm in cricket. When basketball season come around, I'm in basketball. When football season come around, well, I'm in football. And it was just enjoyment for me to be a part of sports, not really thinking of tomorrow and career wise. It was just the enjoyment of the sports that kind of just drove me forward every year while I was at school. And then fortunately for myself, my path took me down, making it to the national under 15 and going on to the under 17, playing intercol obviously and winning titles. Even in let's say the last 2 years last 2 years of me going to school, I've been a part of going on trials in various countries. And I think when I started going on trials, that is what kind of stoked the fire for me that this could definitely be a career. Suffice it to say, at the end of Form 5, I had the offer of 18 scholarships, 17 football scholarships, and 1 basketball scholarships. I had various coaches come from America, come to my house and sit down in my living room trying to convince me to go to this school, to that school, to the other school, and what they would be able to offer. And to be honest with you, after going through the period of going on so many trials and having positive interest everywhere that I went, at that time I made the choice to try to go professional. It's not a guarantee for you to go to get to the professional level because football is the #1 sport in the world, and 70% of the world's population is trying to want to play the game. Professionals in the world, I think it's only probably 0.2% of the world's population that actually are professionals in the sport in the world. So it's not very easy to get into, but then if you start looking at that, it might, deter your spirit a little bit. But at the same time, when in your space as a budding footballer, professional, what have you, it's just about you going after something that you dream of, basically.
Wow, Kenwyne, we have quite a few things that based on what you just said, but I want to chat about. But I want to talk about, you talked about your dad working down at the Tetron barracks, and you've been given a ride sometimes. But there was at some point in time where you had to travel from Shogunas to St. Anthony's, and you want to talk us what that was like, having to travel from so far to get to school and get back home?
Well, there are two sides. There are two sides of the coin to that. When I was solidified, on the intercol team, Our training days were every day, basically, and it was at 6 a.m. before school starts, and we were training at the school grounds. So we'd have to get there to start training at 6, not get there for 6 and then amble about and then maybe you'll start training at 6:30. We had to get there for 6 o'clock. Well, get there to start training at 6 o'clock. We had coaches that they don't care where you're coming from. You have to be there to start, dressed and ready to start at 6. If you're there 1 minute past 6, they're not allowing you to train. And at that point in time, as a young person, you're thinking, why is this person so pressed? Why coach so pressed? Why? I mean, look how far I'm coming from. I have to, travel from Shogona, so which meaning I'll have to get up at 4:30 in the morning, be able to leave home by 5 o'clock, halfway dressed already for training. So when I get to training, it's just to put my school uniform down, put my shin pads on and my boots on, because I'll already be dressed in my training jersey, training pants, and my socks on. But why is this person so pressed? And it's only later on, when I got to my professional career, I understood that the discipline that is needed, because if you're not there on time, it means that you're going to be late or you're going to be second to everything. And when you start breaking that down in sports, you would be second to tackling, you'll be second to reaction, you'll be second to everything, basically. And if you don't have the discipline like everyone else and the determination like everyone else, then it means that you cannot be a part of the team. So I would have had to travel on numerous occasions at sometimes 4:45 in the morning, leaving Shogunas to get to Westmorelands, to make sure that I'm there on time so I could train, so I could play. The other side of that is going through school as young people. We tend to, when sport comes on, sometimes our parents see it as a distraction. And because we have not learned the balance of schoolwork and, playing sports, sometimes our schoolwork tends to drop a little bit. Now, my mother was a person that she didn't want to hear anything about you playing sports. It was always your schoolwork comes first. So anytime my grades will start to suffer a little bit, she would say, well, you can't go to training, you're not playing any football. And sometimes, and I could talk this with her now and laugh about it, that, sometimes I would have had to tell a lie because I wanted to train and play so much that, the bus shut down, the bus didn't come, because sometimes when we have training after school as well, we'll finish at 5:30, 5:45, so it's to get ready to leave Westmoreland for me to go back to Shogunas. Most of the guys are living around the area, type of thing. So only a few of us was living that far. And I can explicitly remember that on numerous occasions after training, after school, sometimes the bus wouldn't be coming at all. And me and a couple friends, we would have to walk from St. Anthony's College to City Gate.
Wow.
So we would be walking from in the school up the road, get down to the Westmorelands light and walk all that way past Cookery, past St. James, past Hazley Crawford Stadium, go down Ryson Road, straight to City Gate in Port of Spain. And that's walking, and then get the bus on there, and then you would get to Shogunas, and then we'll have to walk from where I drop off in Shogunas to walk home. So quite a number of times, just because for the love of the sport, I had to do some walking, which wasn't really a big thing for me, to be honest.
Well, you obviously would have been very, very fit, but having to walk that distance, and then, probably I'm thinking getting home between 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Yes.
And then having to get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 4:30.
Yes.
Talk about sacrifice and determination, and there leads a lot of focus. A lot of focus. How many players can say that? I'm sure we have many youths on the call who are looking for scholarships, and not just football scholarship, any athletic scholarship, because we have different people from different sports on. How many people could say that they had, coaches, 18 options, right? 18 options for scholarship, one 17 football, one being basketball, and to have coaches basically trying to court you to come to their school. So you would have been in their eyes, you would have been an impact player. A player that could come in as a freshman and make an impact right away. All right. That is something very unheard of, Kenwyne.
Yeah, I know, and I thank God for the talent and grace that I've been able to have over the years, but especially at that time, I think my trajectory where the sport was concerned was very, very steep upwards. The natural talent and understanding of the game and being able to play various positions as well without actually being coached to play those positions was a tremendous attribute of myself, and being able to have those opportunities as for scholarships is something that anyone would bite your hand off for. Having that number, like I say, it's only later on in life I really put that into context of how fortunate or how blessed I was to be able to have that amount of offers. But funny enough, in the split moment that all of that happened, it didn't take too long for me to turn it down, because like I said, my experiences were that I went on trials to Glasgow Rangers a number of times, to West Ham, to Reading, to Southampton. I went to Manchester United. I went to Middlesbrough FC. I also went to Vitesse in Holland. I also was supposed to go to Perugia in Italy at the time. They were in the Serie A at the time. And straight after the Under-17 World Cup, I was supposed to go there. But I didn't really trust the dealings of the people around, so I ended up not going. But from the moment I started going on these trials, these opportunities, to be honest with you, at that point in time, I made a decision saying that, I can probably do school after. But at this opportunity of being able to showcase myself to become a professional is not something I believed. I believed at that point in time is something that comes around every day, So when that opportunity came around for me to try and go professional, I jumped at it with both hands, because as we've come to know these days, you can get an education in any which type of way. I mean, that time ago, it wasn't that easy to have these different avenues to be able to get, your degrees and whatever. But for me, it was just what they call it, fear or flight or something like that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Fight or flight syndrome. Yes.
fight or flight, So I just decided to take the flight, and that in itself, it thank God for His grace, it worked out for me.
Wow, Kenwyne, and for the students on the we as coaches, we always hear from parents the child is putting so much emphasis on the sport, and they're not doing as well as the academic. How important, Kenwyne, you would say academics is? Because I know you also at the University of West Indies right now doing a sports management diploma, but how important you would say for the youth who may not have your type of luck? And when I say luck, it's not just luck, it's preparation, meeting opportunity. You are obviously prepared, and you got the opportunities, and you went a certain direction. But how important would you say that academics is, Kenwyne?
To me, academics is very important. It balances you on both sides of life, even in sport. Um, it is something that it opens your vision. It opens your thirst for more knowledge, because even in sport you have to be very, very studious. In sport you have to study the various ways to get your technique better, to know your body, to know opponent strategies depending on the sport that you're playing and how you can overcome that. But it also gives you a balance in life. We come from a very traditional society where our parents mainly focus on the educational part. But as we've seen over the years, for a numerous amount of years, sport has a big part to play in young persons having the opportunity to be able to gain an education. For a lot of people, they think that education, when you study in school, that's the only way that you're going to get it. Or you focus on getting your passes, that's the only way you're going to be able to get to university. But unfortunately, that is not the case. You have where sport carries a lot. And I can remember one player that was brought to St. Anthony's from Malik Secondary. And literally he could not read or write. And when he came across, he was playing football, he did pretty well, and he had a few scholarship offers. In between that time, he got some assistance from the coach and from teachers to help him along in his work. And I can tell you today that that person has a PhD. So coming from a
Wow.
place where he couldn't read or write, and having sport or football in this case as his vehicle, it helped him along to get to the place to be able to have an education where he now has a professional career as a doctor. So they both, for me, are quite balanced and quite evenly important in any individual that is playing sport or just and wanting to seek scholarships or higher education. I think they are the same level and they should be treated the same way.
Wow, and that is so motivating, coming from one school, coming into St. Anthony's College, and academics is obviously was not a focus at that time. But and I want to say kudos to those teachers and the coach for seeing the holistic development, not only the football side, but the holistic development of that student. And now I actually know who you're talking about, and now has now is a doctor. That's fantastic
Right.
because that leads right back into our theme. There is hope. So I'm really, really happy
Yes.
for that. Kenwyne, you talked about going on trials, and I'm thinking, I'm guessing here you were 17, 18, 19, going on these various trials, and you just called some very, very big clubs. What was that like going on trials and knowing that you would have obviously heard of players before you who have gone on, some were successful, some were not successful, but was your confidence so high that when you went there, look, what was that like going on these trials in these big clubs and seeing all these facilities? And I already know how much you love the nice facilities, so I know that would have been a plus also.
Well, the first place I went on trial to was Glasgow Rangers. And not knowing, I mean, the only professional team I used to follow up until that time was AC Milan, because I grew up watching AC Milan, since I was 5, and continued with that. So when I had the experiences of traveling with the national and the 15 team, going to different countries, you start off in the Caribbean, you go to South America, you go to different places. You get to start to play in front of 10,000 crowds, 20,000 crowds, 30,000, 40,000 crowds. At that young age, you start feeling more comfortable in the environment, being a part of the sport and then playing in front of the crowd. You get comfortable in that environment. And when I went to Glasgow Rangers at the time, it felt like this is what I should be doing. I was never overawed by the occasion or the facility or the people I was going to meet. But having that opportunity, it felt like, what, this is what I want to do. Because I mean, you go to a training ground, the facilities, you have dressing rooms, you have, nice kits, you have a canteen for you to eat, there's a gym, There's, they have their own medical setup. And then when you go out to the fields, all of the fields are pristine, even though they are separated to where the first team train, to where the reserves train, to where the under 20s train, where the 16s, the 18s, the 14s even train, but all the fields are pristine. And a lot of the players that that ended up friends of mine, a lot of these people, I met them at that time because they were in youth in the youth setup at that time, and myself and Jan Michael Williams, former national goalkeeper, we went out there and we felt that this is what we should be doing, because I mean it felt so right to be in that environment. And then of course you are able to come from such a small country and then go over to a powerhouse, a European powerhouse, and then a big club such as that, they want to see your talent. So it has to mean that you have something in you or about you that they want to see. So at the end of the day, when I got there, it was just getting the ball rolling, just going there and thinking, you know what, I have to make this count because this could be my only chance.
Wow.
Unfortunately for me, I went back there quite a couple times, but again, it had some dealings that wasn't favorable. And the academy, the then academy director, I spoke to him like probably about 6 weeks ago. He always tells me that he made a mistake, because after my trial period was done there, he came and he said to me, there are some clubs down south, and meaning down south, he meant in England, that wanted to see me. For those who don't know, Scotland is at the top of the UK. So he's like, if you go down south and you don't like it down there, you could always come back. And I was like, well, okay, but in the back of my head is that if somebody down south see me and they want me, I'm sorry, I'm not coming back. But I felt good that I had those experiences, and also it was a testament to the upbringing and the coaching that I got and the talent that I had.
Wow, that's awesome. So Kenwyne, talk us through what was it like when you signed your first contract? Just talk us through that. What did that feel like when you signed your first contract?
It was mixed. It was mixed. At that point in time, in that year, actually, I went to Reading that year. I went to West Ham. It was all in a 3-month period. I left. I went on a 3-month binge of trials, I would say. So I stayed a period of time at West Ham. I stayed a period of time at Reading. I stayed a period of time at Southampton. I was supposed to go to Tottenham Hotspur after Southampton, but at that time I got tired. I really got tired. I was like, you know what? I've been going to all these people. They want to sign me, but again, some things out of the sphere, with negotiations and that type of stuff, was the only thing that was holding me back from not signing for someone else at that time. Um, but when I got to Southampton and they were like, you know what, they want to sign you, I was just like, I'm so tired. I think I'm just going to sign here, and that was it. So when I signed the contract, I remember the season was ongoing when I signed the contract. So I was, with the directors of the club and watching Southampton play a game. I can't remember who we were playing. And I signed the contract, and from the minute after I put my signature on there, I just had this sigh of relief, like, it's done. I've finally signed. Okay, now is another part of the journey. But I was so happy, after that, I called my parents, my family, and let them know that I signed. And for me, it was just like another stepping stone into my pathway.
Wow, that must have been fantastic. Can we have some of the guys to use the raise hand option? Because I want you guys to interact with Kenwyne, please. Use the raise hand option to ask your questions, please. And Kenwyne, so for you, a dream come true. What was it like having to come up against some of the best defenders in the world? And tell us, can you call, if you don't mind calling some names, and be in the dressing room saying, I'm going to face X, Y. What was that like, knowing that you were hired, basically, you were signed that contract to produce goals? What was that like coming up against some of the best defenders in the world? And can you name some of them?
Well, my first entrance into the Premier League, I can remember we played Liverpool. I didn't start the game. I came on, I think, in the last 5 minutes or something. But I can remember standing in the tunnel and standing next to Jamie Carragher and Steven Gerrard. Of course, Steven Gerrard, the magnificent player he is, and me standing next to him, I'm the same height as Gerrard at that point in time. And in my head, I'm saying, this can't be the Gerrard everyone is, talking about and raving about on TV. But me and him are the same height. And from then on, I think the confidence that I gathered after that, being able to stand next to someone like that, it spurred me on. Coming up in the league, playing against the Vincent Kompanies, the Rio Ferdinands, the Nemanja Vidiches, and so many others, the John Terrys, the Ricardo Carvalhos, you name it, the Sol Campbells. I've played against them all. It was amazing, because I was able to not only show my talent on the world stage, but the battle that I used to have with these guys on the pitch, over the years, I've garnered all of their individual respect, because it was always a battle, during the games, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoyed, and I know they enjoyed it too.
Wow. Okay, let's get some of the youths in now. So we have quite a few youths have their hands raised, and please, you guys keep raising your hands. All right, I'm sure Kenwyne will enjoy very much all the questions. So Isaiah Wilson, can you unmute and ask, please? Isaiah Wilson.
Good afternoon, Mr. Jones. My question is, who is your role model, and can you still do a backflip?
Afternoon, Isaiah. My role models actually was my father and my uncle, because I had two men in my life who played football, was relatively known across the country. And of course, my uncle also playing for the strike squad at that time. They were the people that I had to look up to. Of course, I also had my older brother to look up to as well. So they are kind of the people that I strive to measure myself against. And of course, yes, I could still do a backflip.
Wow. So Kevin, that was your favorite. I guess that you were fear of when you scored, because that backflip, I mean, I'm sure everybody in the stadium is looking, here he goes, and just to land back on your feet. What was that like? What made you want to do that type of celebration?
Again, it was my uncle's celebration. He used to do that for the strike squad, so it's something that I just took on, seeing that I was able to further extend a legacy of our family's name. My dad and my uncle, they at that point in time, they were at the highest level, internationally. And me having the opportunity, I mean, I used to take that with me all through school. So I didn't start it when I signed the professional contract. I was doing that since I was in school. So every time I would score, I would do it. Coming up from the under-13s right up to Intercol. And then even with the national youth team and all the youth teams and the senior team as well, is something that I've always carried, because I took that from my uncle. So it's something that I just carried on for the rest of my career.
Please let me say that, guys, please don't practice the backflip without permission from your parents.
Disclaimer. That is the disclaimer. Please do not, parents who are there, I do not endorse your children trying that. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. We got that all the way. So Yannick Lewis, can you unmute and ask, please? Ask your question.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. My question is, who was the toughest player you faced in your career, and which team was the toughest team you ever faced, rather being on national wise or league wise?
Afternoon, Yannick. It's difficult. It's difficult to say who was the toughest. The level of competition I played professionally was very high. Each team and its set of players propose, such a very intriguing and difficult challenge at a lot of times. The way how football goes, sometimes today they will have one up on you, and then tomorrow you will have one up on them, But in terms of, a team that you never wanted to face, really, those were two teams for me. That was Manchester United at the time, and also Arsenal. At that time, they used to play some tremendous football. I think what everyone is copying now, but that at that point in time, that is all I can say in terms of having difficult or the toughest opponents. Those who you would worry about.
Wow, thank you, Kevin, and thank you, Yannick, for that question. Is it Aurelio? Niles, Aurelio, please unmute and ask your question, please. And guys, we want more of you to ask questions, please. So Aurelio, Niles, go ahead, please.
Yes, Mr. Jones, good afternoon. My question is, how did you cope mentally with the fact that you were given the opportunity to go play in the Premier League?
Afternoon, Aurelio. Mentally, I think I was pretty fine with it. The things that I went through, unconsciously, it prepared me for that moment. The days of, playing in school and the little things that I would have had to go through, the little obstacles I would have to overcome in order to get there. Also, making it to the national under 17 team at the time, and having the responsibility of representing your country at a home tournament is another thing that would have added to that preparation. Also, when I went on trials, we're in Trinidad and Tobago here, it's either sun or rain. If you're in the valley, some people might feel a little cold in the mornings or late at night. But when I went on trial, my first experience with snow, and not even a snowstorm, but snow at a very heavy level, was at Middlesbrough. And, it was extremely cold. And the thing is, my thought process was that, again, you don't know if you're gonna ever have the opportunity again. And at that point in time, I was at Middlesbrough for a week, and they had us training in this dome for the entire week. The weather, it was cold, it wasn't snowing yet, but from Monday to Thursday, we were training in this dome against youth players. The academy, we were training under 19 players. At that time, that is where Gareth Southgate, who's now the manager of the English national team, he was a player at the time at Middlesbrough, along with Jimmy Floyd Hasselbank and guys comme Mendieta and Janino and these guys. And also in the academy, one of my colleagues and friends today, Stuart Downing, was in the academy at that time. So we were training with them, on AstroTurf in this dome, and it was cold. So you have to put on your long tights. You have to put on your short pants, your long pants, your Under Armour top, your jersey, a training top on that. Then you're putting a sweater over that. You have on a hat and you have on a gloves, because in that dome itself was so freezing cold. And I can remember on the last day of the trial, the coach decided we're going to go outside and train. And on that day, it was a blizzard. Snow coming down tremendously. You know, like when we get like yesterday and the day before, when we had heavy rains, it was so hard, you know, you couldn't really see outside. The snow was falling like that. And I can remember the other two guys from Trinidad who I was with, they took a little peek outside the dome and saw the weather and was like, I'm not going outside today. And I turned around to them and I went, you know what? Well, that's your problem. I'm going outside. So I went outside, trained. I can remember my feet being so cold, I could only feel from my knees down. My feet, I was running. I don't know how I was running. I had to kick the ball, trap the ball, run. My hands freezing, couldn't feel them. I can remember cold running from my nose. I couldn't do anything about it because for some reason my mouth was open. I couldn't close it. I couldn't even get my hands up to wipe my nose because my hands are frozen. And I just had to carry on, you know. And at the end of the trial, the then manager was, of course, he was former assistant coach and also former national coach of England, Steve McLaren at that time, you know, sat me in his office and he was like, you know what, I really want to sign you and invite you back here because I think you have something tremendous. So again, those little moments are testaments to me that the things that I've gone through to be able to make it, being a professional, is just a testament to everything else, you know, every little trial, every little obstacle, every little hindrance, I would say, because don't think that it was all smooth sailing, you know, all the way through. I just woke up one day and I became a professional and then I signed a contract somewhere else. It didn't work out like that. There are times that, you know, you're going to hear no, you're not going to get an answer at all, that you're not going to be starting or you're not going to make a team, you know. So it wasn't all cherries, to say.
Wow. And then we have a question here in the chat, which is asking, how did you deal with players who may have spoke, like, you know, Tevin is asking, who had a different language, and how did you communicate with them? How did you all build that camaraderie, that chemistry?
Well, first of all, you have to be a very sociable person, you know, very warm and inviting, because football or sport, I would say, is the one thing that brings people from different races and backgrounds together. Even though, yes, we know that within the realm of sport, there's some ignorance and you hear about it on various different platforms. I myself, I went through that in my playing career, but you tend to be able to form bonds with people when, firstly, when it comes to the sport, they recognize your willingness to work, first of all, and then your talent, and then everything else after that takes care of itself. You know, people find interest, they start asking you, you know, where you're from, what do you do, the language, even though someone might not speak, you know, 100% English at that time, or you don't speak 100% French, you find common ground for people to interact with you, and then they start learning about you, you start learning about them, and things of that nature. And the more you work together and have success and failures together, go through trials and tribulations, I think is the greater that the bond grows.
And that's awesome. And Israel, can you unmute and ask your question, please, Israel?
Have you ever got into any fights in school, whether it was physically or verbally, and how did it end?
Sorry, can you repeat that, please? You broke up a bit.
Have you ever got into any fights, physically or verbally, and how did it end?
Well, it depends on what you call a fight. Yes, I've been in a couple fights in football for various reasons, or various teams, I would say. Got in a fight for a number of age groups for the national team. In my club career, I've got in a couple of fights. I wouldn't really call them fights. I think it's more, just the heat of the moment, passion, stuff being said. I don't think over my career, a lot of people wanted to fight me, to be honest. Um, but when I'm in a team per se, I tend to engross myself in that team and think of my team as my family. Because I know that every day we go out to train, we train hard together, we get fit together, we go through obstacles together, we have victories together, we have failures together. And then when you go and play against other teams, of course you would want to protect your family. So it would have a number of instances. And I mean, you see things on TV where a guy would get tackled and then you'll have people surrounding. And within that melee, you would have a couple of people going the extra mile. And of course, you might have something happen. I think most of that happened in my professional career. It didn't really turn out to fights because, like I say, I don't think a lot of people wanted to fight me. So I got away from actually having any serious skirmishes in the professional career. But with the national team, over all the age groups, I think we had a couple of fights and it did end in our favor.
Isaiah Wilson, can you unmute and ask a question, please, Isaiah?
Which player did you always respect on the field?
It depends. It depends on what you mean by respect. I respected everyone's talent because I understood how difficult it was to become a professional footballer at any point in time, at any level. It is not an easy thing. So I've always respected people's talent. But on the field of play, I don't think I had any respect for anyone because in that sense, because we're all here on the same field, sharing the same stage, going after the same goal. So when you get out there, it's about you obviously coming out on top. It's not about thinking that you're going to respect anyone. And then I always thought that I had to always be, at the top of my game in all aspects in order to gain the respect of a lot of people, because obviously some people tend to judge you on the team you play for, where you come from, that type of thing. So I think I did that pretty well in my career, enough to be able to have the respect of everyone that I played with and played against.
And I think Kevin, by way of news for the people on the call, Kevin has been a professional for 18 years, spanning 18 years. So that's a very long career as a professional. Can we have Amelia Castellano? Amelia, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Yes, hello, good day. What I wanted to find out was somebody who's not in a social status to play the sport, but they really love the sport. How do they get into the sport of football? I'm already 16, but I really love football and would love to know how to get into the sport.
Well, I don't think you have to be in a social status to be able to play the sport. When things open up, in a lot of respects, there are quite a few clubs around the country that have women's team. You can make inquiries and ask them for the opportunity to see you, to get involved. I don't know how old you are, but if you were in school, they would, depending on the school, they might have a girls' team, or maybe the community that you live in, they might have a women's team, and you put yourself forward in that manner.
Okay, Amelia, if you want also, you can send me a private message with your number, and I will give you some people to contact. You can send me a private message. Also, we have Jelani. Jelani, can you unmute and ask your question, please?
Excuse Mr. Jones.
Want to send a private message? Let this man give me some information, my child. With football.
All right, cool. So, sorry. So let Jelani go ahead and ask your question, please.
How did I get noticed by scouts to play abroad?
That is beyond me, but I guess through my exploits in school, playing for my school team, and then
I just asked the question and yeah.
and
All right.
then
So, okay, I think the lady needs to unmute, to have her mic muted, please. Yeah. So, because it's coming across. That's all right. Kevin, go ahead, please.
yeah, through my exploits in school, playing for my school, and then making it onto the international circuit with the national team. That is how I got recognized first, and then I think also playing, professionally in Trinidad first. I played 1 year in the Pro League for W Connection, and I guess people made contact. Scouts were around in various places that we went to. So once they recognize your talent or see some attributes that they might like, your name goes around in a network, I would think. But I can't directly say how I got noticed internationally.
Okay, Kevin. Like all players have it. What's your favorite? You obviously scored lots of goals, but which goal or one or two goals that you would never forget? A goal that you scored and it's just something that edge in your memory.
Wow, that could be a lot. That could be a lot because I regard every moment. I think more than anything else, it would have to be the goal I scored in the semi-final of the FA Cup in 2011 at Wembley Stadium. We beat Bolton 5-0 that afternoon. And well, that obviously sent us to the final to play Manchester City at the time. But because, of course, it is the home of football, as they call it, is the biggest stage for football. Wembley Stadium, you have 90,000 people watching you. And such a beautiful facility as well. I think that I'll have to pull out as the number one moment. But I do regard my first goal in professional football in the UK as a very special moment, and every goal I scored after that, because I mean those are memories I would take along for the rest of my life.
And tell us a goal for Trinidad, one that kind of stuck out to you, because you scored quite a few goals. But how many goals did you score for Trinidad, Kevin?
I think I got to 23.
And which one stands out for you? Which one, if you have one in particular that stands out?
Wow. I think, to be honest with you, in my entire national career, we played Guatemala. In Guatemala, it's a very difficult place to play in. Very difficult. The referees don't give you any decisions. Obviously, all the fans are Guatemalans, they're against you. And it's a place that we have never won.
Wow.
Ever. So we went over there, and this was about 4 or 5 years ago. During the World Cup campaign, we went over there and we beat Guatemala 2-1, I think. And I got a little diagonal ball from Joven Jones at the time, and I just went onto it and hit it one time, taking it out of the air. And that, I think, for me, is probably the most memorable goal for a number of reasons. Of course, yes, we've never beaten Guatemala over there. Also, I think we were on the ascendancy in senior national team football, and we had a very good spirit in the camp at that time too. So I have to regard that as the number one in my memory.
Now that's awesome. Is Jelani has another question, or Jelani, your hand is just up. Do you have another question, Jelani?
Yes, I have a next question.
Go ahead, Jelani. Go ahead.
So especially in these times during the pandemic and I can't go anywhere and think how certain people will get selected to play for Trinidad because I want to play for Trinidad. I'm a mother support them about the pandemic making it hard.
Well, I think most of the people that are playing for Trinidad and Tobago at this point in time, they are professionals. They are professional players. They have been in the national pool of players for some time. So I think that is where they get the crop of players from now to play for Trinidad. But I don't know what's your age, Jelani. But I think you would need to get out there, and whether you're playing for your school, because when you're under 20 years of age, when you're playing on the school circuit, that is where you get recognized, where people can see your talent. I don't know if you play for a local club. When that comes on stream again and you're playing, I know people are are always looking at talent, because that is where we get our talent for our youth national teams as well. So if you're determined, when the time comes and it reopens, I suggest that you push as hard as possible to get back on a team training and obviously be a standout.
Alright, so I used to play for my school and a local club when the place was open.
Which school was this?
Kenwyne Hamilton.
Sorry, say again, please.
Kenwyne Hamilton Secondary. It's in Moruga.
Okay.
Okay. So I would say keep pushing. When the time comes, you keep pushing, you keep playing, and you keep working hard. Stay focused, stay determined, and your time will come.
Right. And what I want to say, there's a question in the chat from Stefan Seals. It's Kenwyne, what was your most challenging period, and what did you do to cope?
Oh, okay.
So Stefan wants to know what was your most challenging period or time, and what did you do to cope?
Well, I think this is one of the ugly moments we talk about in the sport that is not welcomed, but it is prevalent. Back when I was at Stoke City, I think in my second to last year at Stoke City, there was an incident where a few teammates of mine broke into my locker, and they wrapped a pig's head in my clothes, while I was out at training. And when I came in from training and obviously saw the incident, of course there was some follow-ons after that. But at that moment, we were coming down to the last game of the season. I was going back to the last game of the season was Southampton. We were going back to play there. I really wanted to go back and play there because that was one of the clubs that I played for. But at the point in time when the incident happened, I refused to go with the team to play, mainly because knowing myself, a person that gets along with everyone in the dressing room. No one I can say 100% can ever say that I was ever a bad teammate or a bad person. And when that happened, I couldn't understand, what was the reason for that extreme action. Again, my locker is something that is a combination locker, so you have to break it open for it to for you to get in there. And that happened. So I remembered, going through the process, and, the coach at the time, he just called me just to find out if I'm Muslim or not. But obviously I have friends within the team. They called me and tell me, like they haven't, after traveling to go down to the match, they having a little jog, and the coach himself, along with some of the players who were involved in the incident, they having a laugh about it and a joke around and whatever the case is. And I was like, well, this is definitely, my time here is over, because I saw it as a very extreme violation of my personality and my standard within the locker room. Because, like I say again, any team that I'm in, I regard that team as a family. So I felt betrayed in a lot of ways. At the end of probably about a month after the season ended, I remembered gotten a phone call from the club secretary just to tell me I was being sanctioned, I was being fined for the repercussions or the extras of the incident. And the other people that were involved, they were on a suspended fine, meaning that if they ever committed any other offenses after that, then they will be punished. They weren't going to be punished for actually committing the violation, but if they do anything else later on, if they have any bad behavior later on, they would be punished. And I was thinking to myself, the only call I'm getting from these people is to tell me I'm being fined, and no one is calling to find out if I'm okay. How am I feeling in the moment? To have a sit down and talk about this with people at the club, people who committed the violation. And I'm thinking that, as much as I am here giving my blood, sweat for these people, they don't actually care. And then, of course, the question of race comes down into it, because I could have imagined, in one instance, if it was me committing that violation against someone else, someone who's from there. And even worse, in that moment, I had to think, even the end result, I'm the one getting punished and everyone is on a suspended punishment. So it didn't show me any equality at all in that sense. And it was a big challenge for me. I stayed a year at the club after, which didn't go too well, because when the season started, I played the first 6 games, scored in the first 5. And then on the 6th game when I didn't score, after that, I was placed on the bench and I didn't play a game for the rest of the season after that. So I had a little, well, I won't call it an incident. I will just say a highlighted moment that I tried to gain some attention, where I can speak to the people so I could leave the club, because I didn't feel like I was, comfortable in the place that I was in. But it was very tough. And if it wasn't for, family and strong faith and a greater understanding, I don't think I would have been, had another 4, 5 years in football after that.
Wow. Wow. And you see, and Kevin, most people don't know obviously that side of it, and having to go through that type of trials, because they all think it's just making big paychecks and signing endorsements and signing autographs and turning up in limousines, and not knowing that you have to go through these things as an athlete.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you do. I can remember the second club I played for, which was Sunderland. I remember on signing you have to do, player appearances, they call it, but it's the community engagement program. And I remember sitting at this grocery one time and sitting down signing autographs for 4 hours.
Wow.
People were lining up. It was just me, people lining up all the way out the grocery, around the corner, wherever else. They weren't bothering to come to the grocery and shop. It was just sitting down signing autographs. But it wasn't a very excitable moment for me. I'm just thinking I was grateful to have this opportunity and being able to be in such a place to do that, because that is not something that I wished for as a young player or a young person. I didn't dream about making big money and driving fancy cars and that type of stuff. I just wanted to mainly play football, just to extend the legacy of a family name.
Wow. Christina, can you unmute and ask your question, please, Christina?
Hi, sure. Good afternoon, everyone. As the youth football in Trinidad, do you think there is enough being done? A couple years ago, way before the pandemic, they had the TTFA had a program where they had an elite group, right? And they were supposed to start well, my son young, right? Well, he's 10. He will be 10 January, right? But they were supposed to start an elite program, they say for under 9. That way it would help, train the youths better for the upcoming different leagues then. Whereas before they enter like secondary school with the intercol and stuff like that, so that will be fully ready. I mean, even for Trinidad as well as players, coming out, if because people always say they're too small, right? But to me, I don't think a child is too small, because every kid have the ability and the talent, small in an aspect as to reach a certain level way before time, probably yes. But if they have the ability and the talent, then therefore it should have, how to say, things in place. I mean, my son is 9, but he plays with 15 and 14-year-olds because of his ability and his talent, right? Hi, Coach Lavacat. I don't know if you remember me,
Hi,
but we were at Pro Series with
yes.
Coach Paul and Kenwyne Joel here as well. So I mean, I just, to me then as a parent, you try different avenues. You send your kids to a lot of camps to expose them to different coaching worldwide. I mean, thanks to Coach Paul, because through a Coach Paul from Pro Series, he bring a lot of coaches. So, you get different training and aspects of international training and guidance from coaches. So from your aspect, what do you think that, that they probably could put in place, or Trinidad could work on as for the future of, kids who really want to have a passion, and that's, professionally they want to be a international player, like that kind of aspect?
Well, to be honest with you, we would need probably a month of your time to be able to explain exactly what needs to be done. But for yourself, what I would ask you to do is to continue to support, continue to encourage your son to play, because as the title rightfully says, there is hope. In my personal opinion, what we have been doing before is not enough. It is not what is required in this present dispensation. And in order for better development in the future, we definitely need to do better and put things in place so that it is more open, it is more safe, it is more structured for you parents to feel comfortable with, and even for the young kids to be able to have a space to be seen on a consistent basis. Because as much as you would want your child to be the next Messi or Cristiano Ronaldo, the reality is is that that is not going to happen, right? But it does not mean to say that your son or daughter cannot go on to have a professional career and become, a tremendous player later on in life. But for now, all you need to do is just continue to encourage. And I'm pretty sure that in the coming weeks, months, years, and I might be putting some pressure on the TD here, that things would will develop in the way that they should, and we would have more exposure for the young kids of Trinidad and Tobago.
That's well said, Kevin. And Christina, what can you send me your number on a private chat, please? And I would contact you and let you know what is happening, because there are things happening behind the scenes, and it shouldn't really be staying behind the scenes, but that we will let the public know for obviously for players like your son who is quite talented. We have things happening, right? So what I want to say, Kevin, if I'm going to give you one more question, you talked a lot about your belief in God, and what part has God played in your journey?
To be honest with you, I don't think God played a part in my journey. I think I'm an instrument in his play at this present time. He is the bigger entity, the be all and end all for myself. So I'm just, a character in his movie. But from a very young age, and this is just life we're talking about here, God is something that, was, let us say, tradition, but not in the traditional sense. It is something that, has passed through my family from generation to generation, and was instilled the principles of prayer and love and understanding and the word of God. So it's something that has always been with me. And apart from just hearing about it, I think I've had enough experiences where God has done a lot for me, for me to be able to recognize, and some that I did not recognize as well. So it's not a question of, him playing a part. It's me being able to fulfill my role in his plan for my life.
Right, thank you. And I will say, I know for me, Kenwyne, everybody's born with that gift. God gave us all gifts, and it's what we do with the gifts. Some people never unravel their gifts. We all have potential to become great in, whether it's business, music, sport, whatever areas. We just have to fulfill that potential. Kenwyne, any final words for our audience? Any final words for our participants today? And we want to thank them for being here. But any final words?
Well, I don't want to count it as final, but like the theme of the webinar is there is hope. I understand that we've been through very stifling and confusing time with this with the pandemic, and even at large with the things that are going on in society and things surrounding our football. But at the end of the day, as young players or young athletes, young sportsmen and young sportswomen, the only thing you can do is continue to push, continue to work hard, continue to believe in God, continue to believe in your talent, and continue wanting to learn. I urge you, and I know sometimes it is a bad trait or characteristic that we pick up, and more so these days for some reason. Our young people think that they are the finished product. I want to admonish you to continue to being receptive to instruction. Keep wanting to learn. Keep hungry for knowledge. Keep working hard, and I'll say it again. It does not matter what you want to be. What matters most is how you get there and what you do to get there. continue to press on, continue to train hard. Of course, listen to your parents, listen to those in authority, and be disciplined. Oh, sorry, that was a mistake. You cannot be disciplined. You have to practice discipline, because when you practice good habits, they become permanent. When you practice bad habits, they also become permanent. So please practice good habits and continue to believe. Thank
That's
you.
fantastic, Kenwyne, because as you say, practice good habits. Whatever you practice for a while becomes you. So I love how you put it in perspective to practice good habits. Kenwyne, you have had such a fantastic career, spanning so many years. We want to thank you on behalf of the TTFA and the Normalization Committee for taking the time out of your schedule to share this particular talk with the youth. If you guys can put a little note to Kenwyne in the chat, right? If you could put a little note to Kenwyne in the chat, let him know what you thought about his talk. As my brother would say, vroom vroom in the Zoom, right? So put a little chat. Amazing. All right, I love that. So very informative, magnificent. Yeah, keep putting those things in the chat, folks, because we really want to thank Kenwyne for taking his time out today. It's not easy. We look at these athletes and we say that they're very lucky and not knowing what they have to go through. And he's had quite a bit of a journey, so, and each of you, I want you all to put in the chat, I have greatness inside of me. I want everybody to put that in the chat. That's very, very important. I want you all to put that in the chat, please, for me.
May
I have greatness in me.
May I do want to say it has indeed been a pleasure to be on this evening. I do appreciate you all sitting here and listening to what I have to say. I thank the technical director, obviously, for the opportunity in being on such a platform, because this is not something that, that is the norm in Trinidad and Tobago, and is something that needs to become the norm, because I do believe that, being able to have somebody you can reach out to that is in such close proximity is important, because this is something that players abroad do in their home countries and in other places all the time. It's a matter of them being able to inspire someone else to become as great as they can be. So I do appreciate, the opportunity in being here and speaking with you all this evening, and hopefully, God's willing, I would be able to do this again at some point in time. So I want to thank everyone for their time and thank everyone for their listening here. And I do pray that you all continue to be as great as you are and become even greater. Thank you.
That's fantastic. And as somebody said, Kenwyne, your humility is phenomenal, in terms of wanting to give back, and more of this should be done, because sometimes we don't give back as much as we really need to. So this is awesome. This is awesome. And we are encouraged. Every week we have a different athlete, maybe sometimes a different sport, but the same message or messages keeps running through. All these people that you see have not made it very, very easy, and what they had to go through. And all of you, trust me on this, all of you have the potential to become great, right? When you get down, not if you fall down, but when you fall down, how soon you bounce back up. And make sure you have your family and your different support systems, because you need people to help you. You need people to help you. And yes, Marcel, we had Karen Forbes. As Marcel asked the question, Karen Forbes was on last week with Akeem Stewart. Karen spoke also. If you guys can get a chance to go over the recordings, we're not going to leave them up forever. If you can download the recordings to your own system, it's yours to keep, yours to share with anybody you want to share. And yes, always remember you have greatness inside of you. So again, we want to thank Yale and Kenwyne, who's our technical person at the TTFA. Without Yale, these things wouldn't be possible. Yale sends out the emails and the reminders and all that stuff. And Yale has been very, very instrumental in helping me put these seminars on. So Yale, thank you very much. And I want to publicly thank you again. Thank you, everybody. So we're going to be signing off. Do have a wonderful afternoon. Kenwyne, let's keep supporting Trinidad and Tobago. We play again, I think it's French Guiana.
Yes.
Yeah, on the 6th, that's on Tuesday. So we had a good showing, and to Angus even his players, they had a good showing. So we seem to be heading in the right direction. Long journey ahead. The Gold Cup is, if we get to the Gold Cup, it's not going to be an easy there. Our first game is Mexico, but this is a great experience for all players moving forward. So thank you very much. God blessings to everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin Jones.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Whoa.